could just freeze this moment. It's such a human sentiment to feel overwhelming joy, peace, or contentment, and one it never passed. To hold tight to the bliss. Right here, right now, this is perfect. If the gods took me this moment, I would die a happy man. Probably most of us have expressed some variation on that theme as adults. That same feeling of bliss is at the root of every toddler's rebellion when they're being dragged from the park to the pool. What do you mean this has to end? I love this, I'm happy. How can we leave? This is an outrage. Okay, so toddlers don't use the word outrage, but they're really good at expressing the sentiment. But we know that there's no capturing lightning in a bottle, no holding back the ocean's tides. Change is a coin in this realm. The only constant, as even our 2-year-olds have to learn, as we drag or bribe or threaten them out of the pool. The blurb for the sermon quoted lines from Michelle Silverstein's poem, and they're worth chewing on again here, I think. I will read the whole poem at the end of the service. It says, there is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins. That is a simple and yet profound image, that interim between one zone, one solid, unchanging thing, and the next. It's a place of transition, of migration, of crossing over. And you're no longer tethered in one place, but not quite settled and secure in the next place either. It's that in-between place, which may appear small and insignificant, but it can have tremendous impact. You have to be careful in that place. Footing can be dicey. It's easy to sprain your ankle. Much worse. Attention must be paid. Now, I won't much discuss today what you have to do to prepare for life transitions as such. You won't hear any 6 easy steps to prepare for your retirement in Ecuador, nor 5 things you must do to get over your divorce. The internet is chock full of such advice. A few mouse clicks away. Much of it is sensible and no doubt helpful to keep in mind as we navigate shifting currents of our lives. But what we'll ponder here instead are the dynamics and the baseline implications of the transitions we face as conscious creatures with acute memories, storytelling capacities, and regrets and yearnings and worries about the future. So now it's time for this sermon's first transition. Here it is. As a lifelong track and field fan, I have watched countless relay races over the years. The passing zone is critical as one runner hands the baton to the next. They have to make the pass within a confined zone. And the ideal, what all relay teams shoot for, is that the baton handoff occurs at the exact moment when both runners are sprinting at full speed, so there's absolutely no slowdown in the exchange. That means the runner receiving the baton has to take off running so that he or she is hitting full speed just as the handoff occurs from the runner behind, who is also sprinting at full speed as they lunging forward with the baton. If the receiving runner takes off too early, pass either happens outside the zone, which means automatic disqualification, or the receiving runner has to slow down and come all the way to a stop. We've seen this before. I've seen this before anyway, before reaching the end of the zone, and they sacrifice all their momentum. In those cases, they may as well have been disqualified because the chances of making up that lost ground are virtually zero. All of this is much harder than it looks. Track history is littered with colossal failures of teams comprised of the fastest individual runners in the world who nevertheless lose to teams whose runners are slower but who have mastered the details of the time exchange. Attention must be paid in that passing zone, where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins. Or in the singer Van Morrison's equally poetic words, to the place beside the garden and the wall, to the space before the twilight and the dawn. Our lives are suffused with such transition zones. Indeed, each birthday most always involves an acknowledgement and celebration of the transition between one calendar year of our existence and the next. Anniversaries of this, that, and the other thing serve the same purpose. They note the passage of time, the maturation of our physical, psychological, and spiritual selves. And it is true of communities and nations as it is of individuals. Anniversaries ritualize that we've been at something for a while, but that we're no longer what we were. Indeed, we are never quite what we were. But birthday and anniversary rituals compel us to pause, to look back at our history, and forward to what awaits. Graduations, weddings, the departure from old jobs to new jobs, old homes and cities to new homes and new cities, kittens, divorce, the death of a spouse, the transition from youth to old age, from employment to retirement, from parenting the devoted dependent to enduring a scowling would-be independent, in other words, a teenager. These are all transitions that mark our lives, some of which we navigate more smoothly than others, but all of them challenging us somehow to connect the old with the new, to manage a sometimes precarious journey to a place where our footing may not be as solid, our vision perhaps obscured. Then there's the ultimate transition, leaving the land of the living, heading to the great beyond. Talk about a transition zone. Or as a science fiction writer, Isaac Asimov wrote, life is pleasant, death is peaceful. It's the transition that's troublesome. Stephen Jobs' last words were reportedly, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." Unfortunately, deathbed scenes more often reflect, "Oh whoa," from W-O-E. So we have to ask, why are transitions so challenging? Can't we just wake up one morning and get ourselves to a new place, like buying a new shirt and taking the old one to the Goodwill? After all, human beings are by far the most adaptable and wide-ranging creatures in the entire animal kingdom, aren't we? But that doesn't mean we're already enamored of change in our daily lives. I had an early career in special education. And I later parlayed that into producing a magazine and a website for a nonprofit that deals with people with intellectual disabilities. One thing that everyone in the special education field knows about their kids is how difficult transitions can be for them. How much they are prone to act out and resist when they're required to leave one activity or phase of their day for a new one. Well, I had long held the theory that all human beings have developmental disabilities to some degree or other. So-called normal function being a highly relative and a fleeting quality of being. It's true of kids with developmental disabilities. It's true of all human beings, just on a lesser scale. All of us do better when change and transition come on slowly, smoothly. We do better with plentiful warning and time to envision and prepare for the demands of the change that is coming. We see this illustrated perhaps most clearly in two different kinds of deaths. One occurs after a long illness, and as hard as it is to watch a loved one suffer, decline, and die, the long process helps us prepare for and adapt to the huge change that is coming our lives. It is still a major storm, and we will not be the same when it passes. But the process gives us time to batten down the hatches, so to speak, to put plywood up where it is needed around the exposed windows of our heart. The other kind of death is when the beloved is taken from us suddenly. An accident or a catastrophic medical event, or even worse, by violence. This comes from nowhere, like lightning. 1 minute, all normal and unchanging. And the next, our world is thrown into chaos like the shock of a twister that we never even saw coming across the fields. With zero time to process or to prepare to handle the transition, our world is rent asunder. The normalcy that we have been moving around in just moments before struggles to catch up to the catastrophe that we have just experienced. There's a one line that we hear over and over again in such situations. It's this: I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Well, it was just, it's true. We can't believe it. And it will take a good long while for our disbelief to be reconciled to the hard reality of what we just experienced. And it's because we had no time to prepare. Time is a great gift we need for transitions. Time to process and figure out what we will carry over from the old, what we will need to make a place for, what we will be required to grieve. We transitioned to summer this past week. Last Sunday it was still spring. Monday, Shazam! We had summer on our hands. And as we all know, the division of the year into 4 seasons, based on our relationship to the sun, however scientifically sound, is not quite so cut and dry as all that. Solstice and equinox are specific dates on the calendar, but in truth, it's a long lead-in, an unfolding transition to summer from spring. On the North Coast, I think that summer starts creeping up sometime in late April, when the air loses its bite, and we can easily break out in summer temperatures, even if the temperatures plunge down again into wintry depths at night. There's a time when the seasons on both sides of the transition point may trade back and forth in a matter of hours. You know, it's a little thing about spring. It's like if you don't like the weather, just give it 20 minutes. It'll change. Santa Rosa was gray, cool, and gloomy pretty much every day the week before the summer solstice. I had to wear sweatshirts all day. It was dreadful. It was another example of both seasons being active through the transition zone. Some of the old meshing with some of the new. We are no different. Every transition combines past and future. We can never dump our history and start all fresh, as we often hear about in those old noir films, when a couple who's run afoul of the law realizes they had better leave Dodge City. Probably heard this one that says, "Come on, we'll take the loot, we'll move out west to some town where no one knows us, and we'll start all over. We can be anyone we want to be out there. We can leave all this behind." Of course, that's when the script calls for the camera to slowly pan down to where the state trooper's car is creating a small dust storm coming up the road. It's got a bead on the hideout where our lovers will meet their ultimate fate. That state trooper car is our past, reminding us we may have certain responsibilities back down the road there. Maybe a debt or two to pay. A relationship we have to untangle that we can't easily escape. However much our transition to a new life circumstance may require us to change, to shed old habits, routines, and rituals, we can't wipe the slate completely clean. It's not like those other movie characters who suffer a blow to the head and they wander into a strange city with no name and no past. One of the more common transitions for UUs is the one that brings many of us from the religion of our childhood to this tradition. I wonder if I can have a show of hands of who grew up UU. sure it would. Oh, many of us left, well, all of us left our old traditions, and some of us left it in something of a huff, which I think probably includes me for sure. Disappointed and dismayed, and sometimes even disgusted with their narrowness and their exclusivist tendencies. We often experience a kind of emotional and intellectual backlash where we dismiss all Judeo-Christian symbols and rituals as just so much balderdash we have to get away from. The Universalist part of us can celebrate with great gusto and openness Hinduism and Buddhism and paganism, but we run for the exits when the talk turns to Jesus and Moses. That vehemence just shows the difficulty of transitioning and leaving our old selves behind. That process can be fraught with struggle and unresolved issues. We want to gladly embrace the new, but that old place where the sidewalk ended just keeps dogging us. I think if there's one overarching point here, it is this, that successfully transitioning to the new depends on a healthy relationship with and an integration of the old. We kid ourselves if we think we can dump all those old ways of being, those old perspectives and relationships, without a long and an honest look back, without an appreciation and an understanding of how they have shaped us. It doesn't mean the past inevitably burdens us and keeps us from successful transitions. Quite the contrary, I would say. Coming to terms with critical areas of our past is the only way we can fully embrace and make the most of the new. We're still all tangled up, conflicted, and distraught in one way or other with our old religion, our old spouse, our old boss, or parent, or sibling, or friend. We can't fully embrace the new. We can't arrive there and take on what awaits us with an unburdened heart. The sidewalk behind us is all upended by tree roots, and cracks, and divots. We can't reach the transition zone. Can't take that baton. Head for the street and a new leg of our journey. Successful transitioning means we take what we learned from our old selves. We celebrate and take joy and nurturance from what it has given us. That includes the difficult parts that may need forgiveness of ourselves and others. Never are the words, "it is what it is," more relevant than when we apply them to our past, because there is no changing what happened. But, this is a big but, our perspectives and appreciation for what happened can change dramatically. And I would submit they are key to whether we can successfully navigate transitions that await. You need a certain amount of tenacity for that. A friend of mine works as a doula, helping to bring babies into the world. She was telling me recently that transitioning is a specific term in that profession. It refers to the time in childbirth when the mother's cervix is dilating in that last lap from 8 to the fully open 10 centimeters. She told me that what is a one response that nearly every mother has ever encountered who shares in common of that time? It is this, according to her. Virtually every one of them reaches a point in the process where they say, "Please make this stop. I cannot take this anymore." And most often they can. And they do. The childbirth, like many significant transitions in our lives, tests their endurance, tenacity in ways that we cannot imagine, in which we're not always convinced we're ready, that we can pull off. At least that's what I've heard about childbirth anyway. But the happy truth is that most of us do survive, and we even thrive through transitions. We may get bruised along the way. We may have to dig really deep, call on our deepest reserves. We may have to ask a lot from our friends, our family, our therapists. But like the pupa slowly working its way out of the larva, perhaps buffeted by winds and rain all along the way, we emerge, most of the time, more whole, more self-knowledge, more compassion, more regard for the complexity and counting out difficulty of life. Transitions are rarely, if ever, easy. They are always necessary. They are the train moving down the track of our lives, stopping at one station for just a moment or two, critical junctions, and then moving on again, whether we think we're ready or not, waiting only briefly